Just a second. Okay, good evening, everyone. This is Sachin Karnik here. Today is the 22nd of December, 2024. I want to welcome you all to this evening's contemplative a conversation as well as dialogue and presentation on the continuing questions regarding the religions of the world. We have been continuing Genesis 1.1 and looking at intelligent design. Before I begin the presentation, I do want to give the two people who are online the opportunity to ask questions or to make comments or to ask me to, probe into anything in more detail. I'll be happy to do that. If you can, if you want to do that, just let me know so we can, we don't have any hard and fast rule in that way. I mean, it's not that formal. So if you want to ask some questions, because I can always continue from where I was last time, but I don't want to overwhelm you all too much with too much information. So I want to give you a chance to reflect on what's been covered so far, and at the same time make some comments, your own reflections, your own comments, and then we can probe into that further. And we can do that this evening if you want, rather than my continuing. I mean, I'm happy to do that, but I just want to give you that chance. So
Well, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Debbie.
go ahead, Deb.
Go ahead. Um, it's been a busy week, so I haven't had too much thought. Although what would pass through my head, here and there, was just about that video.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then your comments about after watching the video and contemplating, it could really throw you off for how you feel, think, and believe.
Yes, it can. Yes, it can.
You had said that, and my God, some weird fleeting thoughts went through my head.
Yeah.
And it got a little scary.
Yes.
I didn't take time to sit and ponder my thoughts, and I didn't look at the video, but it seemed like it was something that was worth exploring.
Yes.
But it's a little scary to think about.
It is. It's very, very, that's why, as I stated, this entire subject about religious studies, um, it's one thing, just to have a kind of like a childlike faith and just to say I believe in this and that's my tradition and leave it at that, and kind of more rituals and more going to church on regular Sundays and going to Bible study, listening to a pastor or to a clergy person, or going to the temples and doing some pujas and rituals and things like that, and having some faith, and then it kind of just stops there and person lives their life that way and they are finished that way. But
Yeah.
if you but the moment you begin to really probe into these things further,
Yeah.
it's a Pandora's box. It can be, unless you know how to integrate that back within yourself.
Yeah.
So
My 4-year-old granddaughter, they do go to a Christian church.
yeah,
And she goes to Sunday school, and she has a little hard book, and it tells the story about Jesus's birth.
yes,
And she came, and she can't read, but she would turn the pages, and she told the whole story about, there was no room at the inn, and they found a manger, and the angels came, and the baby was born. And she's reiterating all this, which was phenomenal. I'm glad she knows this stuff. But then at the same time, things you said last Sunday or the video,
yeah.
it's like, what's true and what's not true?
Well,
it was,
yes, yes.
I don't know.
Well, remember. So I'll just make some comments on that. So thank you for sharing that. You have to remember something here, and these are just I'm just sharing with you some of my contemplations on this over the years and see what you think about it. See, just take some time with it. I think the fact that whatever may have happened actually in history, it's not just with religion, but it's with anything. It doesn't matter. Whatever has actually happened, that's the reality. What has come in tradition, in books and in stories and in teachings and whatnot, it could be some distortion of that reality. It could be. It doesn't have to be. It could be. So it's like the story keeps changing over generation to generation, particularly when you didn't have recording devices, particularly when there's miracles and things like that. I mean, so I'll give you an example. Some years back, maybe it was like year 2000 or something like that. In the Hindu temples, there is the deity called Ganesha, and maybe Millu might remember this. And it happened all over the world where the deity was drinking milk. So there's the milk miracle. You can look it up actually in the on the YouTube. And you have a glass of milk and you offer it to the Ganesha, and he drinks the whole milk. And the spoon, just a spoonful of milk is off, and they have videos capped. They still cannot explain it. You see? So they said maybe this is happening because of some video trickery. They tried to do so many things. Nobody could explain it. It's still not explained as far as I know. It's lasted for a couple of days. It's called the Ganesha milk miracle. Now there's video of that. There's a lot of now people say, well, is a video morphed or somebody tried to play some trick, but there's video all over the world, and it's been captured on video, and it was even CNN ran a clip on that. But as far as I know, in the Western countries, they kind of suppressed some of that footage. They didn't want to show too much of it, but it's there. The footage is there. And on YouTube, the videos are there. Who knows, right? I mean, and doesn't matter. Anybody could offer the milk to Ganesha, and he drinks the milk. And this happened for about 3 days or so, 3 or 5 days or something like that. And there were like hundreds of people lined up in these temples and anybody would go. It doesn't have to be like you believe in Ganesha or anything like that. It would happen. So how do you explain that, right? There's miracles like that are there in Christianity with regards to Mother Mary. They see her sometimes crying, or sometimes they have visions of Mary, and from the idols and icons, there are all kinds of experiences. There's water that comes out of the different images of the saints, things like that have been. So there's a lot of miracles. Even many things are documented pretty well, and maybe there is some explanation for that. But so 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 there's that dimension, and then there's the historical belief. The belief that has come in tradition and in history. Is that accurate, or is the core of it accurate? Has it been embellished further? This is what you're asking. um, and so there are, as I stated before, academic areas like historiography, and they really look at the evidence and really try to tease out what really happened, what didn't happen, what was the actual thing that happened, how much evidence is there. These are very deep and difficult subjects. Not to mention all the commentaries that have been written just on Genesis chapter, the Torah that we've been looking at. There is so much commentary on that, so much interpretation. We'll get into that in just a moment, but it's profound. And then there's the theological development, the development of the belief system. Belief system is developed over time. So children are brought up in that, with faith, in every tradition. Uh, so belief system, maybe we can talk about that a little bit. What's meant by that? There's the actual reality, like God speaking to Moses. Just for example, let's assume for a moment that actually happened. Okay, so Moses experienced it. Uh, all we can do now is assume that it happened, or you could assume that it didn't happen. It's a story. It's a belief, right? So after Moses talked to God, or God talked to Moses, and then he got the commandments, and he got the message, and he got all this teaching. Who else saw God? Did anybody else see God? What is that? Who is that God? What is that God? You see, so the belief means, fundamentally, belief means that one is having trust in an event that actually happened. but that's a belief, or it's a belief in something that you you have put faith in that was actually there, but you haven't experienced it yourself. So, for example, I can say I believe in God, but that doesn't mean I'm experiencing God. That is, these are two different things. You know, Debbie tells me you take 70 West or whatever and you go to the Grand Canyon. There's a Grand Canyon in Nevada. I can say, okay, I believe you. That doesn't mean I'm experiencing it. I have to actually drive my car and go over there. And then when I see it, I can say, now I don't have to believe in it anymore. I'm seeing it directly. You know, so as I mentioned yesterday, during the last time, that reason takes us to a certain point, then faith comes about from there, and then culmination of faith, where doubt disappears, opens the doorway into the transcendental realm, into the actual reality that you're having faith in, the actual truth, the consciousness or God, the divine, assuming that that is there. But one would have to travel that path to see if that's the case. You know, it's not. I mean, I can believe anything. It doesn't mean anything. For example, I can believe that Grand Canyon exists. I'm sitting here in Newark, Delaware. So what? How does that change my life? How does that do anything for me? It doesn't do anything at all for me, other than the fact that I have a certain belief. Now, it's not exactly the same with religion. When I believe in God, it has a psychological benefit and anchor and things like that. But that doesn't mean I'm seeing God. And then the question would mean, what does it mean even to see God? How do you explain that, right? Even to explain to somebody that, for example, Debbie has seen the Grand Canyon, and let's say 1,000 of her friends have not. Even if you explain it to them, even if you show them pictures, that's still not the same as seeing it, right? So even if you show pictures, I can be justified. I can believe you that yes, there is the Grand Canyon there, but now with the AI and everything, you could generate images of all kinds of canyons and all kinds of stuff that doesn't even exist in reality, and it looks like the real thing. How the heck do you know if it's actually there? So the only way I would know is to drive my car or take a plane or and actually go there. You know, and that's the difference. That's the difference between just a belief versus spiritual practices to try to ask God to reveal himself or itself, for revelation, for direct experience. And right. So do you have comments or questions about this?
Yeah, I have question.
Go ahead.
So how does, so if somebody says, God, please reveal to me and God will come.
Wait, say that
I,
again, please. Repeat that again.
I mean, if I say, God, please reveal yourself to me,
Hmm.
right? Is that something which will just happen?
No, it won't just, as far as I know, it doesn't just happen. It it is a, so okay, this is only my the commentary on this. See, faith that is that is developed out of the blossoming of reason, it is called justified faith. So simply believing, like, me, little children believe in God and all that too. You know, that doesn't mean God comes to them. That's just a psychological belief. It's a psychological state. But if you want to see God actually, then there is an alignment, a realignment of the mind, the body, the system. Everything is realigned to the frequency uh, that is in the revealed scriptures of the world. To align oneself to that, and then to hope that there is a revelation. You see, so I'll give you an example. I'll give you an example from various traditions. Take the Jewish tradition. Those who are following Judaism, they have faith and they have their reasoning and everything, and they're doing practices like, you know, at the wall and all that. You see people, they wear the special clothes and there's so many sects within that. But the bottom line is they are actually doing practices of all kinds to realign themselves with the word that is written, so that their life, their thinking, their feeling, their beliefs, their ideas, their ideology, it synchronizes with what is written down in the commentaries, like the Talmud, like the you know, whatever the commentaries exposition. It is a realignment. Okay, well, let's assume somebody does that. They spend years realigning themselves. All right, now what's next? What's next? Well, if they realign themselves, then is their internal emotional and mental system connecting with God? Is it connecting with the divine? All right. Let's say they try to connect with the divine out of devotional songs, out of scriptural reading. Every tradition that worships a monotheistic God has devotional songs, has maybe like mantras or like certain kinds of teachings are there, stories are there, so many things are there. Like Debbie was saying, all of that, it can be a doorway into something extraordinary. But what is that extraordinary thing that is the doorway? What possibly is that? So when a person begins to establish a relational bond with God, with the divine, where faith and reason, it's really just blossomed out, there is the possibility of what we would call revelation. Revelation means there is the revealing that by grace that the divine opens the doorway. Now what is that doorway? What in the world is that actually? Well, that's what's interesting. We would have to go to our own experiences of life, that there's the waking state, dream, and deep sleep state. The Vedanta tradition talks about this. It doesn't even have to be Vedanta tradition, it's just our experience of life. Waking, dream, deep sleep state. But who is it that is dreaming? Who is it that is waking? Who is it that is experiencing? So is there a soul? Is there a consciousness? Okay, intellectually you could believe that, but to discover that, again, many processes are shown. Ultimately, that doorway could open where there is the opening into the divinity itself by grace. So self-effort can take you to a certain level. This is what many theistic traditions say. But they also say that you cannot go to where God is by your efforts. He has to reveal to you and open the door to you by his will. He's not going to open it for everyone unless you really want that. If you want that, and if your search is genuine, prayers are genuine, and your heart is pure, and take just the Bible that we're studying right now. There's so many teachings throughout the Bible about the purification of the heart. If the heart is impure, the mind is impure, you cannot see God actually. The pure at heart shall see God. But then you have to open this further. What is meant by purity? Open that further. Okay, but let's assume for a moment a person actually has a very pure, saintly, very good heart, good life. Okay, then that's a preparation for even more enhanced devotion. You see, so devotion towards God is enhanced when there is purity of mind, clarity of thought, and there is unwavering conviction. But again, it has to be a bona fide path that has been time tested, that is not concocted by the human mind, because a human mind can build anything. It has to be something that really has genuine truth behind it. Then it makes sense. I mean, Debbie says to me, take this path to go to the Grand Canyon, but she could be telling me to go some direction that doesn't even take me to the Grand Canyon. She could say take 81 north. It'll take me to Niagara Falls. It won't take me to Grand Canyon, right? That doesn't mean Grand Canyon doesn't exist. It's just that I'm on the wrong route. You see, so this notion that all roads lead to Rome is not really true. As much as we like to think, well, all religions lead to the same place, or all spirit paths lead to the same thing, they lead to wherever they all lead. We don't know where they all lead. We don't know exactly. We cannot say every road leads to the same destination. But if there is one mountain everybody's trying to climb, assuming they're climbing the same mountain, and assuming they're not going in circles and stuff like that, then you can say that there's one mountain peak. You see, so it becomes a little bit of a difficult scenario. Are we saying that all of the religious traditions are nothing but pathways to the same mountain peak? Is that actually so? I mean, what if you had a religious tradition, take the mountain analogy, where you start climbing and then the path just goes in a circle. It doesn't go up anymore. You just start going east, west, not north anymore. All you're doing is going in a circle. What if a religious tradition is like that? That doesn't mean that path doesn't lead to the mountain top. You see, what if a religious tradition doesn't even climb a mountaintop? It just stays at the base and it just keeps revolving there. You see, so this is that's why this entire subject is very, very, very tenuous, because it is a matter of experience ultimately. If there is purity, like take the Bible's teachings, the pure in heart shall see God, the Ten Commandments and all those things, there's ethics and morality and all that behind it. All right, you have ethics and morality. What is your life like? What is your experience? Ultimately, is there experience of joy? Now, if you go to many churches, there are people who are very devoted. It's quite remarkable. The pastors and the preachers and the priests and whoever they are, the clergy people, when they're giving a sermon on the verses of the Bible, they have done their contemplation. They're speaking out of love and out of devotion, and they can go for hours, and they're filled with the Holy Spirit, and they're speaking from faith, and you've got the congregation that is saying amen and all that kind of stuff, and they're really into it, and now, is that all some kind of a delusion? Is this just some fabricated thing that these people are living in some artificial world? Is that what it is? Or are they really tapping into a dimension of true faith? And when there is true faith, there is an extraordinary experience in that. Again, now you could argue that that extraordinary experience is generated by the mind, by the brain as a delusion. I mean, then it just falls apart at that point. So like Daniel Dennett and Richard Dawkins and Sam Harris and all these atheists, they would say all this thing is just a fabricated phenomena, that you're just believing in something that's not actually there. But if you look at the other perspective, that no, there is the divine, but you cannot touch the divine that easily. You have to go through a certain process, purification and belief and faith and all this, and then at some point, that revelation occurs. The preparation is there. Preparation, then practice, and then revelation. So it's like this. If let's use a simple analogy. Debbie says to Sachin, "There's a Grand Canyon." I said, "No, there's no such thing as Grand Canyon. Forget, you're lying to me. I don't believe you." The whole issue is over. I'm just going to be in Newark, Delaware. I'm not going to make any effort to go over there or take any route or do anything. I don't even believe you that at all. That you're making something fake up, fake. There's no evidence. I mean, I said, show me the evidence. Have you been there? Show me pictures. No, I cannot show you pictures. I cannot talk about. This is the problem in the religious traditions. They say that there is the divine. They say, show me the evidence. And they say, no, you cannot get evidence that way. You have to look at evidence in an indirect way, intelligent design and this and that. And so it's all indirect kind of stuff. And then you have to have faith. And then at some point in the future, whenever, that divine will reveal itself to you. You see? So this is where the trouble begins. That when you said you're looking for evidence, the evidence is within the realm of senses. If it's not within the realm of senses, you're looking at something mystical. And if it's mystical, who knows what that is? I mean, it could be anything, right? We don't know what that is. And we don't know how what's happening in the brain or the mind with regards to mystical experiences. So, for example, people have vision of Jesus. I've met them. I've met many of them over the years. They sit for meditations, they sit for prayer, they go into a church, they have a lot of faith, and then at nighttime they have a vision of Jesus, or during the daytime where they feel some divine experience or something. What is that? Is that some kind of a psychiatric condition of some sort? Or is it just some delusion of some sort? I mean, there's people sitting in psychiatric hospitals who claim that they see Jesus and the deities, and they see all there's all kinds of psych stuff that going on over there. How do you know? Is that spirituality, or is that what we will experience if we go in that
I
path?
cannot hear you.
What was that?
My internet connection is bad.
Oh, your internet
Can
connection.
you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can
Yes.
hear. Yes, I think something is unstable somewhere. I don't know what happened here. Hold on.
Yeah, it says your internet connection to me. So I was like, okay.
Okay, let me hit a little. Hold on, the refresher here to see maybe that'll clean up some of this stuff. I wonder what was
One point we couldn't hear you. I could hear and it could be me.
okay. Debbie, can you hear me all right?
Yes.
You can hear me. So, okay. All right. So, you know, so there's many ways to see all this, but when we are trying to develop faith, let's say a person says, like me, who says, Debbie, I believe you that there's the Grand Canyon. I believe you. Okay. And then I can do something with that. But if I say I don't believe you at all, you're lying to me, or this is some fake fabricated thing, then there's no question of my even going anywhere. I'm not going to go to going to see the Grand Canyon because I'm not going to take any path to go there. So when Jesus says, for example, you have seen me, you've seen the Lord, he's talking to the people at that time who were in front of him to recognize who he is in the human manifestation. And then he's talking about heaven, he's talking about God, like transcendent, and then he's talking about himself. So those who are seeing the divinity directly in front of in front of them, they is it that is he saying that you believe in me? He does say that, but if you look at the New Testament carefully, he says that later on. He's in the beginning. I mean, there's points where he says, "You've seen me, you've seen God." There's no question of belief. Belief comes when you cannot see Jesus as God. Then you have to believe that then he says, "You believe in me. Believe in what I'm telling you." But Debbie, if Sachin is also seeing the Grand Canyon and you're seeing the Grand Canyon, then where is the issue of my believing in that? The belief doesn't exist there because you're in the reality of it. I'm in the basking in the glory of the Grand Canyon. So there's no belief in that. Belief only comes into the picture when there is the lack of experience.
Lack of evidence, right?
Not just evidence, but experience, direct first person experience. Jesus is telling, I'm using that as an example. He's telling the people in front of him, you've seen me, you've seen the Lord. I and the Father are one. I and the disciples are one. Disciples and the Father be one. What does all that mean? Where's the issue of belief in that? Believe, but then he says, those who believe it in me shall have eternal life. So then those who cannot see him or cannot recognize him or who come in tradition, then they have to have belief. So maybe that's what that speaks to. You see, so belief and direct touching that which you believe in are two different things. I can believe that I have an apple in my in my refrigerator. Somebody tells me, my mother tells me, Sachin, I got apples in the refrigerator. They're in the refrigerator. And then I get up 2 hours later, I'm looking for the apple. There's no apple there. I believed her, but she misspoke. There's nothing there. So I believed her, but when I opened the refrigerator, I find that there's nothing there. So it's a belief, but that wasn't in connection with the reality. Now I could believe that there's an apple, and there really is an apple, but my belief takes me to open the refrigerator. Knock and the door shall be opened. That's what the Jesus is saying. But knocking is that belief part, and belief and conviction and intellectual part and all that stuff. That's the knocking. But you cannot open that door yourself. That's what the grace-based traditions say, that God opens the door. Now you can ask 1,000 other questions like why doesn't God open the door for everybody? We don't know that answer. It's like asking why is there darkness? So we don't know why there's darkness, but when the sun comes up, there's no concept of darkness. So like in the sun itself, there's no day or night. There's no concept of darkness.